Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Let's begin, as we usually do, with the Chinese economy. According to a filing on Monday evening to the Shenzhen and Shanghai stock exchanges, the China Securities Regulatory Commission plans to impose a 4.2 billion yuan, $580 million fine on Hengda Real Estate, Evergrande's mainland business. The former chairman and former vice chairman both received huge fines themselves and have been banned both for life from the securities market. The filing quoted the China Security Regulatory Commission's preliminary decision as saying that the company inflated revenue by over $80 billion in 2020, almost 4/5 of the total. The CSRC has identified 3 areas where the founder, Evergrande Real Estate, and other senior executives are suspected of engaging in illegal activities. These include inflating income in Evergrande Real Estate's annual reports for 2019 and 2020, the public issuance of corporate bonds by Evergrande Real Estate in 2020 and 2021 is also suspected to have involved fraudulent activities through the use of false data. Additionally, Evergrande Real Estate failed to timely disclose relevant information. Of course, the world knows Evergrande was the trigger for China's now years-long housing crisis. Regular viewers know, however, that Evergrande is simply a symptom of the wider rot in the system, rather than just a cause, and that rot continues to weigh on the housing industry. Indeed, yesterday it was learned that the price of second-hand homes in the country's most developed cities fell 6.3% in February compared with the same month last year. That was the worst year-on-year decline ever recorded since the government started releasing data in 2011. It was part of a widespread drop in prices across the country, as China's painful real estate slump shows no signs of losing steam. Indeed, as we have seen in previous videos, it could well be worse this year than last. US-based The Wall Street Journal writes today that the drop in second-hand home prices comes when sales are rising, showing that homeowners now accept the need to lower prices to get deals done. The number of second-hand homes sold in 8 major cities rose 96% in February compared with the same month last year, according to a report from Shanghai E-House Real Estate Research Institute. The sales volume was the highest in 20 months. Li Yujia, chief researcher with the Guangdong Housing Policy Research Center, a government-backed think tank, expressed on the poll numbers, quote, "If price reductions are needed to enable transactions, it indicates that market sentiment is still quite pessimistic, making it difficult to support a sustained rebound in transactions." End quote. Next up, and speaking of the China Securities Regulatory Commission, over the last several days, the CSRC issued 4 documents to, quote, "promote the high-quality development of the stock market." End quote. Regular viewers will know that after losing trillions of dollars in value from its high in 2021, China's stock market has seen a nice boost since Lunar New Year a month ago, driven by a nervous Beijing buying up stocks and expressing support to bolster confidence. These new documents suggest that more state intervention in the market is coming. State-run Global Times writes that the documents, quote, "demonstrated China's determination to protect investors with teeth and horns and boost market confidence, as well as cultivate a good environment for the healthy and stable development of the capital market." End quote. Among the 4 documents, 3 are guidelines aimed to boost supervision of initial public offerings, listed companies, brokers, and public offering funds. Chinese financial media outlet Caixin reports that the new rules listed in 2 of the documents will tighten listing requirements, crack down on financial fraud by listed companies, encourage listed firms to increase dividend payouts, and buy back shares. The new rules come shortly after Wu Qing, the new chairman of the China Securities Regulatory Commission, promised to strictly hold the IPO threshold and make every effort to block fraudulent companies from the capital market at a press conference during the national legislative meetings known as the 2 sessions the week before last. At the press event, Wu was asked whether Shanghai Composite could rise back to 3,600. Without a word, he raised his hand and put up 5 fingers. He received thunderous applause from the audience. Economist Hong Hao explains, quote, "The crowd believed it meant 5,000. That's the highest level reached in the bubble of 2015. End quote. This has analysts scratching their heads. Does the new head of the China Securities Regulatory Commission really want to have a policy of pumping stock prices up to that bubble level, or is it just hopeful rhetoric to boost confidence? These developments remind us once again just how disconnected stock market prices can be from fundamentals in China. Next up, a child murder sparks national outrage. But just quickly, if you're enjoying today's video or getting some value from it, I have a huge favor to ask, and that is to like and subscribe. This is only 2 clicks of the mouse, but it is a huge help for me, and it's the best way, along with sharing the video, of course, to help the channel grow. And for those who want to help keep the channel financially sustainable, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. The channel relies primarily on subscribers to keep going. Thank you so much, everybody, for the ongoing support. Let's continue. Next up, the tragic murder of a 13-year-old boy in northern China's Hebei province by 3 of his classmates of the same age has sparked outrage online and a national conversation about juvenile crime in Chinese society, as well as the phenomenon of so-called leftover children, a phrase used to describe kids in the countryside often cared for by grandparents because their parents work in faraway cities. The victim's name has not yet been published. We only know that he is surnamed Wang, so we will refer to him as the boy or the victim. According to the victim's father, the boy left home at around 1 p.m. on the 10th of March and lost contact with his family around 5 p.m. The boy's family members searched for him for 5 hours until 10 p.m., but there was no sign of his whereabouts, at which point they contacted the police. After receiving the report, the police found through surveillance cameras that the boy had been hanging out with 3 male students, all in his class and around the same age. These 3 students all denied that they had seen him, however. The boy's father then found that his son had transferred some money to one of the 3 boys. Facing both the evidence of the surveillance and the money transferring records, the 3 students, aged 13 and 14, admitted that they had murdered the boy and buried his body in an abandoned vegetable shed in order to hide the evidence. It is alleged that the accused bullied the victim for a long time. Media reports said that they are children of migrant workers, so-called left-behind children, a still rather large phenomenon in modern China. The case has sparked nationwide debate within the country. Zheng Dongshuo, a defense attorney in Beijing unaffiliated with the case, expressed this week, quote, "Generally speaking, these kinds of cases involving minors are rare, but recently more and more of the cases have been reported by the media, and it's been triggering discussion in Chinese society over revising the age of criminal responsibility." End quote. State-run The Global Times writes today, quote, "The root cause of youth crime lies in the lack of family education and school supervision, with many cases involving left-behind children." End quote. Sina News, in a special commentary, expressed on Monday, quote, "With the urban-rural divide not yet fully eliminated in our country, the irresistible fact is that there are still people from rural areas moving to cities for work, yet leaving their children behind in the countryside. Of course, we should encourage those who move to cities for work to bring their children with them for schooling through policies and specific actions. And even for those children who remain in the countryside living with their grandparents, it's time to give them our full care and attention. These children, if well managed and educated, are the future wealth of the nation. And if there are shortcomings, either they become victims like student Wang, or they may end up on a potentially irredeemable path like the 3 lads, which would indeed be a significant loss." End quote. Of course, the elephant in the room, one which angry commentators online were quick to point out, was that migrant workers often are forced to leave their children behind because large cities, while highly reliant on the cheap labor, do not provide migrant children with education and medical services. There are also very poor levels of service in rural areas across the board, from education, healthcare, and mental health services. Some have called this trend of rising juvenile crime with leftover children a symptom of China's massive urban-rural disparities and 2-tier citizen divide. Meanwhile, on Monday this week, experts speaking to state media said the murder could be the first case nationwide that applies to a new provision under the criminal law amendment. In 2019, a 13-year-old boy who confessed to raping and murdering a 10-year-old girl avoided criminal charges because Chinese law at the time stipulated that only those aged over 14 could be held criminally liable. In response, in December 2020, China adopted Amendment 11 to the criminal law, lowering the age of criminal responsibility for murder and severe injury cases from 14 to 12. As such, these 3 accused children can be charged with murder, a crime which can result in the death penalty in China. The victim's father wrote on Douyin, a Chinese social media platform almost identical to TikTok, quote, "He was beaten alive and his body was disfigured beyond recognition. I hope the government will be fair, open and just, punish them severely, and that the killers will pay with their lives." End quote. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much everybody for watching. Have a good Tuesday, and I will see you all tomorrow.